So we're going to go ahead and get started. This is our webinar for associations to become group sponsors of registered apprenticeship programs. My name is Melissa McGregor, and I am a director here at Jobs for the Future. And our project is to improve diversity and equity in registered apprenticeships, particularly in the manufacturing industry. I'm joined today by some colleagues who will speak to you today on associations as group sponsors, and I will let them introduce themselves. Brent?
Hello, I am Brent Weil. I'm a subject matter expert with Jobs for the Future on this work, and excited to be able to share. I have been able to work across multiple industries and with many associations in developing registered apprenticeship programs and solving workforce challenges.
Mike?
Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Frame. I'm the Senior Vice President for Workforce Development and Chief Operations Officer at the Manufacturers Association of Central New York, also known as MACNY. We'll tell you a little bit more about MACNY and our background and experience in registered apprenticeship during the course of the presentation.
Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy Stage, Director of Apprenticeship and Workforce Development at MACNY, alongside Mike. I've been working on apprenticeship for just over a year now, but before that, I have experience working at the local Workforce Investment Board in Central New York.
Thank you. Jobs for the Future, in case you're not familiar, is a national nonprofit sitting at the intersection of education and workforce. And we have 5 major pillars of our work, which include integrating learning and work, learner and worker opportunity, program quality and efficacy, education and career navigation, and building strong regional economies. So registered apprenticeship really fits nicely into these pillars. And we have a lot of resources that are available for the field in pretty much any of these areas. So today we're going to talk about what is apprenticeship, just to kind of level set and make sure we're all on the same page about registered apprenticeship. Brent's going to talk about why an industry association might want to become a group sponsor of a registered apprenticeship program. And then the folks from MACNY are going to talk about their experiences in managing an apprenticeship program with multiple occupations as a group sponsor, and then some support available through intermediaries such as Jobs for the Future. So what is registered apprenticeship? It is basically a strategy and a tool to recruit, train, and retain a qualified workforce. So employers can find that it broadens and opens up your candidate pool when you're recruiting unqualified talent rather than qualified talent. You're able to hire for, grit, passion, desire to work in the industry rather than those qualifications that you might normally look for. And so anyone is eligible, is a candidate. In terms of training, you can train someone who is already on your workforce. So you can identify an apprentice who is an incumbent worker, someone who is already an employee, to develop and reskill that employee. And then in terms of retention, this is a proven retention tool with all of the supports and structure that's available through a registered apprenticeship program. Apprentices stay and remain in their jobs after the completion of the apprenticeship program with a 93% retention rate. So it's a really good way to invest in your workforce. This is a way to shift your focus for searching for a diamond in the rough to creating an ideal diamond in a lab, right? So this is the lab diamond. It is a real diamond, and you made it on purpose, right? So with enough heat, time, and pressure, a lump of coal can become a diamond. And in the same way, talent can be trained and educated over a swift period of time to become the ideal candidate for the job. In terms of registration, What that means is you actually register a program with the Department of Labor. So a lot of people use the word, a lot of employers are using the word apprenticeship pretty loosely. It doesn't necessarily, it's not always a registered apprenticeship program. So what we're talking about today is our programs that are registered with the Department of Labor, and they come with a set of components and structures that that make it a registered apprenticeship program and add that quality stamp. And one of the things that you'll have to decide right up front, if you want to sponsor an apprenticeship program, is whether or not it's going to be a group sponsorship or an individual sponsorship. And I just want to give you that one detail today. We're not going to get too much into the weeds, but this is important because we're talking about group versus individual. So an individual means one company and group means multiple companies. It's kind of as simple as that. So if a company wants to individually sponsor a registered apprenticeship program, they would register one occupation, and all of the apprentices who work in that apprenticeship program for that employer would work for that employer. In a group sponsorship, that might be an industry association such as yourselves, or a community college, or a workforce board, or any responsible party who decides that they want to register the standards of a registered apprenticeship program, and any employer who wants to sign up under your standards can participate. And that means that you're kind of responsible for the program and kind of tracking the apprentices through the program. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but those are the two ways of sponsoring a registered program. So a group sponsor might not be the employer, right? You might be an association, you might be a college, and you would then have to rely on employers to provide those opportunities for the apprentices to learn on the job, to gain proficiency against a set of competencies that are specific to that occupation. So these are the 7 core components of a registered apprenticeship program. This graphic is kind of old, from the Department of Labor, excuse me, when they had 5 core components, and the 2 new ones that have been added just last year were diversity and then quality and safety. So these components must exist with every apprenticeship program, and beyond them, there's great flexibility. So number 1 is it's employer driven. That means that someone has to hire the apprentice. It's a real job. So you're making a hire into the job, into the job of apprentice, and providing wages and all of that. So it's a real job. Number 2 is that there's this structured on-the-job training, and it is under a mentor. So someone is assigned as a mentor to the apprentice and will provide them with those opportunities over time to display and demonstrate the competencies for that are specific to that occupation. Then it also requires classroom hours. So sometimes this is abbreviated as RTI, related training and instruction, or sometimes related technical instruction. But an apprenticeship program must include classroom hours. It's not just training. It also has to include related instruction in a classroom, and that can be anywhere, right? So again, a lot of flexibility. It can be with a community college. It can be, you can develop your own program as an association for all of the employers to participate in. Lots of flexibility, but it does require classroom hours. It requires wage progression. So you can hire an apprentice at a lower wage than you would hire somebody fully qualified, with the intention of bringing them up to that qualified wage over time. So they have to have these mile markers where you would give them a wage increase based on a flag that you set. And it really should be at least annually. So the apprentice might start at $15 an hour, and then next year they're making $17 an hour. And by the time they are finished with their training and education, they're fully qualified for the occupation. You should pay them a fully qualified wage. And then there are these 2 new ones, equitable recruiting, right? So programs need to be designed to reflect the communities in which they operate through strong non-discrimination, anti-harassment, and recruiting practices. that really ensure access, equity, and inclusion. And quality and safety is another new one. So anything that the apprentices need to succeed, they have to have proper training and supervision, that they'll need to be safe. So apprentices should be afforded those worker protections while they're receiving their training that equips them with their skills. And then the National Portable Credential means that they will earn a credential from the Department of Labor saying they're fully qualified for their occupation. And that's portable, right? So that means that they should be able to take it anywhere else in the country and get a job in that occupation as a fully qualified candidate. So I'm just kind of talking at you, and I'd love to ask if there's any questions so far before we move on, because that was a lot of information. I think you can feel free to unmute yourself or ask questions in the chat. Okay, hearing none, I am going to turn it over to my colleague Brent Weil, who's going to talk about really the value proposition for an association. Brent?
Thank you, Melissa. Good to see everybody here. Melissa, that was a great setup to really what Registered Apprenticeship is about. I'll say that it has been growing dramatically over the last several years. That comes in part from support that has been coming from the national government, state governments to support apprenticeship as a model that really works and is really the gold standard for development of people into careers. But it also is reflecting a growing need that we see, and no more than in manufacturing where we see it. So before I jump into all of the benefits of this, I'll just point out some things that we've heard from manufacturers across the country. One is that workforce is a tremendous challenge, and that we're finding more and more that retirements, of course, have always been there. Turnover as it relates to turnover continues to be there, and we saw with the during COVID, even how that presented itself perhaps even more as people were changing jobs and taking that on and going for different opportunities, maybe a different job, but maybe hadn't really felt like they were in a career, and skill mismatches that we see both from lack of technical education that people are earning when they're maybe in high school. Not everybody's there earning a 2 or 4 year degree, but meanwhile, the processes that we need and the skills needed in modern manufacturing continue to change and needing to be on top of that. Meanwhile, we're hearing that it's harder than ever to attract talent. Not everybody really understands what manufacturing is about. There are perception issues there, and that's for young people, career changers, but also we find parents and teachers even that really don't know too much about it and might not understand what the career opportunities are. And we're also hearing directly from associations, for example, that they are continuing to hear about apprenticeship as something maybe that some of their members are interested in, or people are hearing about it as an opportunity, but may not have the expertise to take it on or the bandwidth to be able to do it. So all of these things we're finding are maybe presented in a perfect storm right now as kind of the impetus for why we might want to take on apprenticeship.
So I think we actually have a poll for this question. And you may see on the right side a Slido pop up. Would love everyone to weigh in on whether or not any of these is true for your organization, and you must choose at least one in order to see the poll. So please go ahead and vote now.
Well, seeing the results coming in, for sure, the top one seems to be that you're hearing that companies are talking about apprenticeship, but may not have the expertise or bandwidth to be able to do it, but it also looks like majority say workforce is really there, and attracting talent is also there as possibilities there. So definitely reflects some of what we're seeing. And the top one being that companies that have heard about apprenticeship and may not know how to do it really speaks to our audience right here today about what that means as an association. Before we jump into it, I will say that apprenticeship really is ideally suited for all of these issues. Go ahead, continue to put your answers in there. The if we that we do if that as Melissa noted that apprenticeship really has is a proven method around turnover, and nationally we're finding 93% of apprentices remain in with their employer, which is a really high mark. In addition, it's really designed for experienced workers to be mentors, support people coming up, really prevent some of that brain drain that may happen from retirements. And it is designed to really match up the training to what modern skills really are, and really make sure that employees and trainers, everybody in the company really understands what it means to succeed in that and have built a training mechanism that really gets there. In terms of attracting talent, about 40% or so of you said that was a major issue. What we're finding is that registered apprenticeship leads to a credential. It's something that people more and more really are looking for, as they understand they're not just joining a job, but they're really entering into a career. And finally, really what we're able to really, I think, talk about today is how associations can be that sponsor on behalf of the industry, on behalf of members, in a way that you take that on. You have the expertise to be able to do that. You're really a hero for your members and for the industry, and can put it forward. So we're seeing that apprenticeship really can be a major answer to all of these challenges that we're finding today. So let's dive into then what some of the reasons that and what apprenticeship can really mean in terms of how you get there. Before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about some of the examples that we've seen work. I've had a chance to work in a number of industries that did not traditionally have apprenticeships, and was able to see how they could be started up or to be expanded greatly. In the senior living industry, there was not an apprenticeship program that was there except for a few examples of individual companies that had done it. We were able to, the association was able to bring together several of the companies, both large and small, across the country. They may compete in when it comes to service delivery, but they all had common needs as employers, and were able to identify common occupations, and so came together to create a national apprenticeship, starting with nursing aides, but then including a whole range of occupations that people were able to join into and be part of. And that really speaks to the economies of scale that can happen when you bring together multiple companies that you as an association are really ideally suited then to be able to bring people together, decide on what is common there. Not everybody has to reinvent the wheel in getting there. Instead, there's a chance to come together using common resources to be able to really identify where that is. And another example in telecommunications, there's an apprenticeship program called the Telecommunications Industry Registered Apprenticeship Program, or TIRAP, that's managed by the Wireless Infrastructure Association, in which WIA, that organization, helped to bring companies together and work alongside them as they built those standards for occupations, starting with one, and then the association was able to step in and become the national sponsor of TIRAP, and that led to some rapid expansion of it. And there are now 91 companies that are part of that program. And 15 plus occupations that have been brought in to really support where that is. What you find when you bring these companies together in this is that, first of all, companies are already doing this kind of work, right? We're all doing training. We're all recruiting people in. We all have training files that people are maintaining and the like. However, what often is missing is that kind of clear progression that people need to see both as individuals to understand, oh, this is how I can succeed in machining. This is how I can succeed in welding, within mechatronics, and really grow my career that way. And that also helps to organize our training so that uh, companies can develop out that training pathway that really is most direct, most efficient to be able to get there. And so companies are doing it, but it likely, oftentimes we're finding that it's, it may not be to a kind of national model and standard for the direction that that's going and take advantage of the resources that an association can provide. And in addition, it may not be super clear to everybody what's there, how they're going to really progress and earn these opportunities, what exactly they need to learn. So when you bring members together in that way, you find that probably 80% plus more they have in common than they have different. Every company does have their own procedures, does have their own maybe equipment and processes, but it's really based on a foundation that is likely very common across them. And so when you bring people together to identify, okay, what are the highest demand occupations we have, and then break that down to what are the skills that are needed and turn that into a skills progression, that will make a huge difference in the way that makes it, can make it really a huge difference in the approach that you can take in really having them understand what's there. And furthermore, it leads to the kind of curriculum, as Melissa noted, is called related instruction, that is there and especially can be used for emerging or evolving occupations, and can be really an important signal and way to work with educators, such as career and technical education programs, community colleges, that matches up with those skill demands that we have. And those can be offered in ways in pre-apprenticeship before they come in and start with us, or can be built into the apprenticeship that happens then within a company. Another thing that an association is able to do is really helps to identify funding and support. There are some supports that are there for national organizations and associations that are really expanding on apprenticeship. And there's also funding that can be available for individual companies that are part of that are joining into an apprenticeship program, and that an association often can be an avenue to understand and support members in identifying those resources that helps to get there. Nobody should really be doing apprenticeship explicitly because, oh, where there's money in it, there's all kinds of money and support for it. That's not the reason to go into it. Really, it's what are those needs within the industry, the ability to save in things like training and turnover to be able to get that there. But there are supports that can help associations to make this have something national, and to support companies in starting up and in maintaining and providing the kind of training that's part of this kind of program. And so that's kind of overall some things, but also it's good to kind of take a look at some things that we might have heard, or things that are there that there might be some myths and misperceptions about this. One is we hear that apprenticeship is only for big companies, and that okay, well, maybe Siemens, for example, is in position to do apprenticeship. First of all, apprenticeship is there for companies of all sizes, and I've been able to work with both Fortune 100 companies as well as small businesses that all been managed to be part of registered apprenticeship programs. What I would say is that when associations take this on, it's almost like you become that big player that then has the resources to be able to support this, understanding that small companies might not have whole training departments and the kinds of relationships with community colleges and the like to make it happen. So definitely, it's not even true, but an association really is ideally placed to be able to help get there. There's second thing that people talk about paperwork, and if you talk to employers, most will say that actually, even if they're managing their own apprenticeship, that it does require that they maintain records of their apprentices, of the training records. But that's something that is really important to helping the individuals really grow in their careers anyway and manage that. And then specific to what kind of reporting is done then with the Department of Labor, that's something that an association is able to take on. And you put that behind, you put their support behind that in a way that their members then don't have to worry about that. And again, it's kind of that pooling of resources. And the same is really true about strict rules. It is actually remarkably flexible. Melissa spoke to how it's something that can be done in a national way, or something that you're done that can be supportive in state environments, for example, and bring it out that way. You can also do competency-based or time-based or a hybrid approach. It's actually incredibly flexible approach to be able to follow. And associations have really been able to build what works. I mentioned a couple of national associations that have been able to do this, but I'll point out that it's really well suited for associations in a state as well. And it's really terrific that we have that we do have MACNY here to be able to speak to the approach that they have that they've taken in making that go forward. And so Amy and Mike, I'm going to turn it over to really speak to how they've approached that within New York State.
Great. Thanks, Brent. So, as I mentioned before, I'm Mike Frame, Senior Vice President for Workforce Development at MACNY. MACNY started its Registered Apprenticeship Program in 2016. And just let me go back a second. So the Manufacturers Association of Central New York, or MACNY, has been around for 110 years. And we're a membership organization of manufacturers, about 300 members. About 70% of our members are industrial manufacturers, everything from small and medium-sized companies through large multinational corporations who are doing business within, I'd say, the central and upstate New York area. So primarily we operate out of Syracuse, New York. We have members sort of around a 19 county region, but we operate out of Syracuse. So within that context in 2016, we started to see and have our members tell us about some of the issues that Brent put up in that survey. Trouble attracting individuals into manufacturing positions, retaining individuals, and really also, though, having the right kind of workforce. So they were looking for a tool for us to be able to utilize to get individuals within their organizations, the company, within their organization, the skills that they needed. And so with that, we were funded through New York State Department of Labor to launch a small pilot program to be a non-joint group sponsor, and Melissa referred to sort of the group sponsorship for manufacturing companies. And so since the launch of that that pilot, the program has grown immensely. I will say that obviously the pandemic created a lot of challenges, and so I think we were on one growth trajectory that ended up pausing heavily, like a lot of workforce things, but we've really seen a huge increase. And so I'll hand it over to Amy to talk a little bit about what it's like for us, and then we can kind of we'll go back and I'll talk a little bit about the results. Amy?
Thank you. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. So we are only going to have enough time to talk about a few of the items with group sponsorship, but really we know there's a lot involved when it comes to creating a registered apprenticeship program. But one of the big benefits of utilizing or establishing a group sponsorship is it becomes an easier process along the way. We've really found over time that it usually takes about 7 or more meetings with a company or individual to be able to move the needle and get a registered apprenticeship program started within a company. And sometimes that's just to sign an employer agreement and not actually sign up the apprentices yet. So it does take quite a bit of time and effort. You usually have one person from the company reaching out to you to want to learn more about what apprenticeship is and what that would entail. And then it's getting the right people to the table and getting the buy-in to actually start the registered apprenticeship program. So with that, we are constantly doing outreach. We work a lot with employers that have established registered apprenticeship programs, whether that was on their own, and we're talking to them about building and adding additional trades that they may not currently have. Or it's outreach to other employers that don't currently have apprenticeship, but they've expressed interest in trying to figure out how to attract or retain their workforce, similar to what Brent was speaking to. So oftentimes we're spending time not only working on the apprenticeship program, but we are going to job fairs and career fairs and to community colleges to talk about apprenticeship. Really, we do a lot of work in the school system too, from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade and beyond, to get the word out about registered apprenticeship programs and what that is. If you're catching them their senior year, a lot of times students have already decided I'm going to college or I'm going to work, or there's a few that don't know what they're doing. But really, if we're trying to build this idea of registered apprenticeship as a viable option for individuals, it's starting at a young age. And a lot of times it's getting the parents to buy in and understand what that means as well. Typically, parents already have an idea of what manufacturing is, and that may not be the case anymore, depending on their previous experience with that. So really one of the big pieces for group sponsorship is compliance and paperwork. One of the myths Brent had listed was there's so much paperwork, which yes, there can be paperwork involved, especially when Department of Labor is involved. However, utilizing a group sponsorship, there's a lot of processes and systems in place that you can establish to help make sure that that's smooth for the employer, for the apprentice, and for yourselves as a group sponsor. We've spent a lot of time establishing kind of best practices of how we're going to track the employer and an apprentice on their journey. So who is their mentor? How are we able to contact them? When an audit is happening and Department of Labor reaches out to us, we want to make sure that we can give them all of the information that they need. So we have a filing system set up as well that will allow us to make sure that we can access Blue Books and know where an individual is at any point during their training. We collect the documentation for related technical instruction. We'll take it as often as an employer gives it to us, but we do a quarterly report 4 times a year so we can start to collect information and not wait until the end and then realize we're missing something, or an apprentice still needs something and they thought they could complete, but they actually can't. So we're making sure that we're staying on top of that the entire time, so that an employer will be aware of at any point where their apprentices and the amount of hours that they are at and what do they need to complete. And the same with our related technical instruction. Any questions so far? Because now I feel like Melissa that I'm talking a lot, and if you have any questions at any time, just throw them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. So I think why MACNY continues to be a group sponsor. I'll answer that in 1 second, Lauren, thank you. That the great thing about registered apprenticeship and group sponsorship, it can be utilized for a company as small as a few individuals and they want to have one apprentice. And it can be used for large companies that want to do a cohort of apprentices. So really, the members have continued to request it, and we have been trying to not only work on apprenticeship, but pre-apprenticeship pathways and utilizing that to diversify manufacturing. So we're using it really across many things. And before I hand it over to Mike to talk about my app and really an alliance that we've created in New York State, Lauren, we actually have, we use smart sheets a lot. And a lot of what we do, we keep track of apprentices in smart sheets, and we, on the employer or the apprenticeship agreement, a lot of the information we transfer to a smart sheet, and we can track when they start, when they're expected to finish, when they need to take certain classes. So that's really one of the key systems that we use. But if we want to talk offline too, I can go through in more detail what other things that we may use.
Amy, I'll
Go ahead.
Can I'll add too. There are some dedicated systems for if it gets large enough, for example, to help manage. One, for example, is Apprenticescope, is one that I have seen used. It's not endorsement necessarily, but there are others. But there are some. But that is one that has been dedicated and that has been pretty flexible to be able to approach multi-employer apprenticeship in that way too.
I know there's some online platforms. I don't know if that's the one, but there is one that individuals can utilize to track their Blue Book. We just have an Excel sheet that we provide to employers, but I know there are some platforms out there that can be utilized. All right, Mike, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk about the Alliance partnership.
Thanks, Amy. So as I mentioned in the beginning, this program started for us in 2016 as a pilot program just for MACNY. Since that time, we've been able to grow the program, working very closely with New York State Department of Labor to now have 8 partners across New York State. And that's really been an invaluable tool for us as well, to be able to grow across the state. 4 of the partners, one of them being MACNY, actually serve as group sponsors. So RTMA in Rochester, MACNY, Center for Economic Growth, or CEG, in Albany, as well as the Council of Industries in the Hudson Valley, are all group sponsors. The other 4 serve as intermediaries, and then the 4 group sponsor partners end up helping those areas. But because of that, we're able to offer 20, Amy, is it 26 now? Because we just added 2? Yeah. So we now have 26 trades that we are able to offer across New York State because of that. So if, for example, there's a trade, brewer distiller, for example, is something that CEG has, we would work as an intermediary to be able to offer that trade in our region of service, but actually have another partner be able to be the group sponsor. So that's been a really outstanding tool for us to be able to grow it. And since inception, I think we've had over 800 participants since 2016. The other thing that the Alliance has really helped with, and I'm sure a lot of you are seeing this in your states as well, is with the opportunities because of the Federal CHIPS Act and the reshoring a lot of advanced manufacturing and supply chain, really being able to work together on that. We've seen a huge increase just in the past few months alone in companies reaching out to us, not necessarily within semiconductor space, but because they're a manufacturer trying to prepare for these new opportunities that are coming to our states to be able to grow their incumbent workforce. So strategically, this has been a really valuable tool for us as well. So that has been that's just something that over the course of a very short period of time, we've seen really strong growth. Obviously, the pandemic slowed the growth of the program down, but now has had a huge sort of increase as well, given the amount of reshoring that we anticipate over the next few years. So happy to answer, I think, any questions and go to the Q&A portion.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Amy. And I just want to talk about really quickly Jobs for the Future idea. And so this is improving diversity and equity in apprenticeships for manufacturing. So we have a team of people who can assist you with registration support, developing your program, helping you connect with partners who can provide the related technical instruction. We can support any of your EEO requirements and compliance requirements for having an apprenticeship program. And we can also give you some tools and resources to help diversify and create equitable programs. And we do have financial support. So we award incentive funding and invest in the field at least annually for establishing apprenticeship programs. So hopefully you will be able to avail yourself of these resources. And on this next slide, we have a QR code where you can request hands-on support. So if you direct your phone, and I know sometimes that's kind of a disconnect if you're trying to get it onto your computer, but we also have our website right there, which is www.jff.org/IDEAM, and our contact information. So you can reach out directly to either myself or Becky Caldwell. And we are here to support your initiatives in launching an apprenticeship program. We are hoping that you have a lot of questions for us, and I'm going to take the slideshow down now so we can see each other's faces. And hopefully we can get some questions answered.
Well, this is Becky. We always get questions from every association we talk to about how can they do this? How can they afford this? So can you guys talk about the different models you've seen on how to sustain these programs over the long term?
That's a great question, Becky. Thank you. Brent, I think you're
Brent.
Of course I am. I'll jump in on that for a second and say there are some decisions that associations do need to make about it. It's obviously does take some resources to start up and manage an apprenticeship program. Some associations have really been able to build into member dues, for example, and kind of build that into their budgets, support for managing this. Others have built in a structure that allows them to capture some fees. Often that works really well if an association has some training or certification, for example, that ties in it, that this is really a natural tie-in within that. And there certainly are examples of associations that have really started down this path, got something moving, and that really leads to momentum that can help to build some funding through grants and contracts, for example, that can really help get there as well. And MACNY, I'm sure, has some other advice to offer.
Yeah, we use kind of a multifaceted approach. I know when the program first started, I don't believe there was a fee associated with it. And as time goes on and you're establishing the program and you are investing time into it, we have started to charge fees based on setting up someone's program or for the monitoring and maintenance of the apprentices over time. But we also do try to source grants as well to offset the costs because we know employers sometimes they're looking for a program and sometimes they, especially smaller companies, need to offset the costs as well. And I know there's training and funding sources out there to offset costs of related technical instruction as well. So part of being a group sponsor is looking for those different funding sources to help a program be able to be sustainable and worrying about the apprentice completing their program and not necessarily worrying about how they have to pay for it sometimes.
What are the first 2 or 3 steps for any association that is interested in this?
I would say having conversations with your members to make sure that there's that interest, and explaining what the program is and what it isn't as well. I think there's a lot of people's orientation around registered apprenticeship, for example, is in the building and construction trades. There is a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences between it in the advanced manufacturing space. And I think within that, making sure that there's an understanding of what the program can and can't do. But we consistently are presenting to our members, and we've been at it for now almost 7 years, still explaining those in the opportunity, both the challenges, but also really that opportunity in starting a program. And so that's by far the first step to it. I think the other thing is understanding, if you're based in a state like we are, understanding and having a conversation with your state Department of Labor, and understanding some of those. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the reason why we are successful in New York is because we have a consistent an open line of communication with Department of Labor. And a lot of the employers like the fact that we're able to work with New York State Department of Labor so that they don't have to. And I'll put my email into the chat.
I would also add that if you are, if you're not a group sponsor yet and you're trying to take those first initial steps, one of the things you might do is host an exploratory conversation with your employer members and maybe kind of just level set on what are the job descriptions, what are the commonalities, what is sort of the basic role that everyone that includes the skill sets that everyone would hire for as an entry level position. And then the apprenticeships can grow from there based on very specific needs. But there's definitely some commonality, as Brent spoke to earlier, where I think it was Brent who said that there's about 80% of the same qualifications and skills are probably needed among most of your employer members. And so just getting together and talking about that and how, your needs are probably more common than you think, and putting together your job descriptions and then saying, okay, well, this is the occupation that we believe is the first one that we can try. And I would suggest maybe just piloting it for an initial cohort of apprentices to see how it goes. You're going to iterate on your first process. It's not going to, I'm sure, Mike, that the program that you're running today looks very little like the program that you initially started, because it will evolve and grow, and you'll iterate on your first attempt as you learn and develop your processes.
That's a really good point. I mean, Melissa, I would even say the program that we're running today, it looks very different than the program we were running last year. It's that kind of movement. I'd say the exciting thing is that the federal government and states are really seeing the value in registered apprenticeship across the board and are continuing to provide that sort of level of support at the higher level for us to be able to do that. And I can't speak to what it was like a few years ago. I only joined MACNY May of last year. But I would say that it does, every conversation seems to be focusing on registered apprenticeship as a real pathway to workforce needs, but really also to lifelong career success for individuals. And that's a big piece of it. I think there was an article just a couple of weeks ago I saw in the Wall Street Journal, I believe, that said that about 50% of individuals now are not going through traditional college tracks for their career goals. And so registered apprenticeship is a proven pathway for that. That just wasn't there even last year, that kind of conversation about that. And so I think the pandemic and the Great Resignation, along with the Silver Tsunami, have been two of those things that have led led organizations to really explore it. So,
Are there other questions that people have in the audience?
Well, let's maybe tell me what you've heard from your members. I mean, how much has it helped their day-to-day struggles? I'd love to hear some.
I can use a little bit of a story of one of our companies that they had they had a brand new company with heavy incentives come into town. So they were very concerned about it as they started to lose some of their workforce to this brand new shiny company. And they're both great companies, but so they really doubled down on registered apprenticeship as that pathway for being able to take their incumbent workers and they use the industrial manufacturing technician, the IMT trade, which we've sort of adopted as as our baseline standard for it. That IMT is, it's 16-month trade, has been incredibly useful to them. And Amy, they're on what, cohort number 3 now, correct? Just about to start cohort number 3. And so that has been really, really beneficial to them. So they're seeing about 10 to 12 individuals per cohort. They actually built a training facility and have the local community college on site offering the technical instruction right there as a result of it. And so they're not looking at shrinking, they're only continuing to grow and grow the program. And they're actually now, it's across 3 sites within the region. That's just one example of, right, there was a disruption to their workforce with a new company coming to town that was in a similar space. So with that, they really said, we're going to focus on training our employees internally in this process, and they've been really successful. And I'd also say, especially because of this particular grant, that overall their numbers have been really strong as well in terms of underrepresented individuals within advanced manufacturing as well. They have really strong cohorts. Multiple women have been a part of the first 2 cohorts and the start of the next one. And I think overall our program has about a 59% underrepresented participation rate.
That's great.
So
Melissa, Lisa asked about individual sponsors. Can you explain the difference and then say if there's something associations can do to help their members become, or Brent, somebody?
Sure. So like I said, individual just means one company and group means multiple companies. So an individual sponsor might be a company, Dynamax Manufacturing, and they want to create an apprenticeship program specific for themselves. They're going to hold the standards. They're going to identify the competencies. They'll hire all the apprentices. they'll take on all the responsibility. They'll track the apprentices through the program, register the apprentices in your state system or a federal system. It just means that you're taking on all of that role for yourself as one company. So as an association, sorry, go ahead.
I was just, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was gonna say, and MACNY has, while individuals are setting up their own sponsorship, and if they're ready to start the apprentices, we've signed apprentices under us, and then as soon as a company is able to complete all of the necessary steps, we've transferred apprentices from our group sponsorship to the employer as the individual sponsor. So
That's
that can
that's a
happen.
terrific model. I'd say too, some associations have chosen to put forward standards to allow individual companies to then register that apprenticeship for themselves to a standard that everybody's kind of agreed on nationally. And some associations have chosen to band together a little more closely and allow the association to really take on that role. It really depends on the needs of individual companies and members. And again, the registered apprenticeship model is very flexible to allow those to take place. But MACNY being able to take that on behalf of that temporarily that's a great solution too.
What do you guys have in the last couple minutes? Any final words of advice for these association leaders who joined us today?
Well, that everybody's here, I think, does speak to the need that's there for this. I would really go back to what Mike was really saying. It's so important to listen to your members, to put together a committee, that a workforce development committee as a start, and then once they've chosen apprenticeship, really put together a committee, a working group that's going to really dive into it, bring those, get that buy-in from some key companies. And that's both executive level buy-in, but also you're going to really look to them for expertise on the occupations, on the needed competencies, how it's going to work, and subject matter expertise. And really planning that, we all have example, is not going to be what we think it is right now, but that's going to really bring every avenue of success, especially once you get it up and running, to have those companies that are going to take this on at the beginning and really pledge to make it part of what they do. And I think you're going to find that they're going to see it really pay off in those benefits that have been talked about.
My only other piece to it would just be like in a lot of things is partner. JFF has been a huge asset to us to being able to do it. We wouldn't be where we are now if not for that. The relationship with either the state or U.S. Department of Labor is critical for us. The community college system or your state higher education systems are absolutely critical relationships. So I would just say those are just some of them, in addition to obviously your membership, making sure that you have those partners across the board. Sorry, what's that? Jobs for the future.
It's an acronym. I'm just trying to make sure everyone knows.
So making sure that you've got those partners as you go through this process, or it's going to help you to be able to establish it. So that has been our sort of our initial thing as we've learned it, and even over the course of time that Amy and I have been at the Manufacturers Association. Similarly, it's the partnerships that make it possible.
Very well said. That's a great ending line, Mike. Thank you so much. It's the partnerships that make it possible.
Carmen, you're asking about success metrics. Send me an email, and my email's in there, and we'll tell you what our metrics are. And then MACNY probably has their own, because every program will have different metrics. So shoot me an email, and we can talk about what ours are compared to what an individual sponsor. So
thank you so much, everyone. It's been a great hour. I hope that you've learned something, and that you'll reach out to Jobs for the Future and get some support. We're available to answer questions and help you with anything that you may need. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.